Hello, hello, Ruth. Good evening, good evening. So, as you know, today we're going to continue with this second session of how to teach grammar. No, as I told you the last session. So this module is divided in two parts. No, the first part is related to grammar, and the second part related to the vocabulary. No, so this is the last session related to grammar, and the next two sessions from this module are going to be related to vocabulary. All right, so today we're going to start talking about first, as you know, a feedback, no, what we talked about the last session, and then we're going to analyze some ways, some activities or techniques to present and teach grammar. No, then we're going to analyze the main or two approaches or ways to teach grammar. No, so let's start. Let's start with this. Remember that the last session we were talking about this question, no? What is grammar? And we saw many different definitions or concepts related to grammar. So we're going to make a fast review about them, no? Some of them. So as you can see here, grammar essentially is the structural foundation of our ability to express ourselves. No, this is very important to remember. The more we are aware of how it works, the more we can monitor the meaning and effectiveness of the way we and others use the language. No, remember, grammar is the structural foundation of our ability to express ourselves, no, in a written or oral way. No, remember that when we talk about speaking and writing, so we talked about grammar, no, and we have here some differences. No? Let's continue with the other one. It is necessary to know grammar, and it's better to write grammatically than not, but it's well to remember that grammar is common speech formulated. Usage is the only test. Now, remember that here it's necessary, all right? It's necessary to know grammar. Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you watch what I'm sharing? Yes? Yes. Okay, please let me know, because I receive a message that my connection is not stable. Yeah? So immediately, teacher, sorry, we cannot hear you, or we cannot watch what you're sharing. Yeah, please let me know immediately. All right. So here you have the definitions of grammar. No, remember, it's the structural foundation of our ability to express ourselves. No, and it's very important to write grammatically, and in order to remember that grammar is common speech formulated. No, this is, in simple words, grammar. Then we talked about here the three-dimensional grammar framework. No, remember that grammar is composed by the form, meaning, and use. No, when we talked about the form, we're talking about the structure. Meaning is related to semantics, and the use is related to pragmatics. So if we could remember, so we have form, how is it formed, how is it structured, meaning, what does it mean, and use, when and why is it used. No? The form and structure is related to the morphosyntactic and lexical patterns, the phonemic and graphemic patterns. When we talked about the meaning or semantics, we have the lexical meaning and the grammatical meaning. And when we talked about the use of pragmatics, we have the social context and linguistic discourse context and presuppositions about context. So remember that we have these three dimensions, no? The three dimensions of grammar: form, meaning, and use. No, and we saw two examples, no, related to the apostrophe S, which indicates possession. Then we talked about the phrasal verbs, no, and we analyzed these three dimensions of each grammatical structure. No, so try to remember these three dimensions of grammar. Remember, each grammatical structure has a form, has a meaning, and has a use. And it's very important to manage these three aspects of grammar. No? The form, so how you make it, no? In other words, simple words. the meaning, what does it mean, and the use, when and why is it used. Don't forget about these 3 dimensions of grammar. So now we are going to talk about this topic. How can we present grammar? Do you have any idea? How can we present grammar to our students? How can we present grammar in class? Anybody, anybody? No, no, no one, no one? No ideas about how to present grammar?
Teacher,
Yeah, Lucy?
to make correct the sentence, for that is important to present in grammar.
Yeah, this is the purpose, no? No, but I'm asking you is how? How can we present grammar to our students?
For example, we can show many exercises about the rules of the grammar.
Yeah, all right, all right. Showing them rules, examples, yeah.
Activities.
Right. Activities. Yeah, that's right, Lucy. Any other idea, any other idea? No more, no more. Don't be afraid, don't be shy. Catherine?
Teacher, maybe presenting the different words of the sentences with different colors.
Yeah. All right, using the board. No, this technique is using the board or using some flashcards. And you told us that you have to focus on some specific words or a structure using different colors. Yeah, all right, that's good, that's good. That's good, very good. Catherine? All right, let me show you something. You told me some specific ways, no? These are the specific. You're right, tell me that you're right, you're completely right. But now we are going to go to the general aspect of how to present grammar in class. And let me show you this. How to present grammar in class. There are 2 major ways to present grammar in class. Explicitly and implicitly. So what do they mean? What does it mean explicitly and implicitly? What's the difference? Do you have an idea? Explicit and implicit. Lisbeth?
Could be that in explicitly is the teacher that explains all the rules, presents the rules that the students must know to write a correct sentence. And implicitly, the student discover through different activities the rules. As some classmates says, maybe we can do some exercise, we can use some flashcards or flash words where they can order a sentence. Maybe the student can, in these activities, discover how is the structure, for example, of simple present. How do we use, or how can they use the auxiliaries do, does, and so on. Yeah, and explicitly the teacher explains. Implicitly the student discover by himself, by herself, could be.
Excellent. That's right, Lisbeth. You're completely right. This is the difference between these two ways, the two major ways, because you told us, no, your partners told us, or gave us some examples, some specific examples, how to present, but some of them refers to explicit way, and some of them refers to an implicit way, as Lisbeth told us too, giving some techniques or strategies to use. So remember, we have these two ways, and as Lisbeth says, this is what we have here. So notice, explicitly means that we're going to use a deductive way. So a rule driven. So notice here that you have this way. So the teacher is going to explain, no, is going to give an explanation about the rules, about the structures. This is called deductive. This is a deductive approach. So it's a teacher-centered approach, no? Because the principal actor of this kind of present grammar is the teacher. Because the teacher is going to talk to the students, no? Explains the rules, the structures of grammar. And on the other way, the implicitly is inductive approach. And as Lisbeth said again, the students are going to discover. That's why here says rule discovery. So the teacher just gives some examples, some points, and the students are going to analyze, recognize these examples, and they are going to identify the structures. But it doesn't mean that the students are going to work alone. No, the teacher is going to guide, and we're going to use this term, a guided discovery. All right. So notice here, this is the two major ways. And in this inductively, most of the time, there is no explanation of grammar, no extensive explanation of grammar. No? So here we have these two major ways. Remember, explicit related to the deductive approach, and implicit related to the inductive approach. Explicit, rule-driven, so the teacher explains, and implicit, so the students are going to discover, identify, recognize these structures, these grammatical structures. So notice these two major ways of presenting grammar in an explicit and implicit way. And don't forget it, don't forget it. A rule-driven and a rule discovery. So grammar presentation and practice activities should be evaluating according to the E factor, remember? So how efficient they are. Remember, we're analyzing the presentation and practice activities. So they must be, or they should be evaluated according to the E factor, refers to the efficiency, how efficient they are, and the A factor, how appropriate they are, the appropriacy. All right. So efficient and appropriate. So the activities that we're going to use to present and the activities that we're going to use to practice grammar must be efficient and appropriate. The efficiency of an activity is gauged by determining its economy. How time efficient is it? So related to the time. Its ease, how easy is it to set up? Its efficacy, is it consistent with good learning principles? And the appropriacy of an activity takes into account learner needs and interest and learners' attitudes and expectations. So notice, in order to choose a correct activity to present grammar, it could be in an implicit or explicit way, or deductive or inductive approach. So you should consider these two aspects, the E factor and the A factor. The E factor, how efficient, and the A factor, how appropriate the activity is. So when we talk about the efficiency, we talked about the time, how long it's going to be, how easy it is to set up, and if it is consistent with the learning principles. This is related to the efficiency. And the appropriacy is related to the needs and interests and the attitudes and expectations of your students, according to the levels, according to their needs, according to their attitudes. So notice these two aspects that we must consider, we should consider when we choose an activity to present or practice grammar to our students. No? As I told you before, it could be in an implicit or explicit way. Let's start talking about the first, the deductive method or explicit. No? Remember, deductive or explicit. The deductive method relies on reasoning, analyzing, and comparing. So this is the focus of this method, to present grammar, to reason, to analyze, to compare. So what are the procedures? Presentation of an example, explanation, so the teacher starts explaining. Sometimes they compare, or you as teacher, you can compare, no, between the target language and the native language, the first language and the second language. No? So there is a comparison, no, between the languages, English and Spanish. So you use this in a deductive method. No? Students practice producing sentences with given prompts. Right? So notice here, for example, this is very common. This is a very common focus or approach or method that we could use to present a class, no? The famous PPP. So presentation, practice, and production. No? We usually use this kind of method when we want to present some grammar structures. No? So we present an example, then the teacher explains and compare. That's why here says, no? Comparing. And then students practice and produce sentences with a given prompts. So this is the way that we're going to present grammar using the deductive method. Remember, the deductive method is criticized because, so here we have some disadvantages. Grammar is taught in an isolated way, not separated. So we usually use this method. We usually use or present grammar in an isolated way, separated from other skills. The focus is just to present grammar to our students. It doesn't matter this listening or speaking or reading, no, just grammar. So that's why here says that it's isolated, isolated, separated. No? Remember, isolated means separated. Little attention is paid to the meaning. The practice is often mechanical. Notice, so the exercises, the activities that we could do are mechanical. However, the deductive method is not without merit. So we could find some good points or advantages when we use this kind of method to present grammar. It could save time. When students are confronted with a grammar rule which is complex, but which has to be learned. Sometimes when the structures, the grammatical structures are so complex and we want to teach them or present grammar in other ways, so they are time consuming. So in order to save time, so you could use this method. No? You present the structure, you explain the structure, you can compare it with the second language, and they could easily get faster. All right, so this is one of the advantages that you could have using this method. No? Not all is bad in this method. No? It may help to increase the students' confidence in those examinations which are written with accuracy as the main criterion of success. No? So there are some examinations that focus on the grammar, the correct use of the language. No? Specifically in the international examination, you must be careful with the grammar structures. No? You have to manage well the grammatical structures. So if you could, or you want to reinforce this aspect in your students, so you could use this method. Notice, not all is bad from this method. No, these are the good points. If you could say that, if you use this method, it's you save time. No, it's not so time consuming, and it could increase confidence in your students. All right. Let's talk about the other one. Remember, the deductive is when the teacher explains, shows the structure, explains the structure, and asks students to practice or produce sentences using the given structure or prompt. This is specifically the deductive approach. Let's pass to the inductive method. The teacher induces the learners to realize grammar rules without any form or explicit explanation. There is no explanation here, right? So they are going to, teachers are going to induce the learners to realize, to notice, not to identify. Here, realize is not to do, it's to notice, to identify grammar rules without any form of explicit explanation. The rules will become evident if the students are given enough appropriate examples. So the teacher must give appropriate example. Notice that the two factors to present grammar, the E factor and the A factor. So you must give them appropriate examples that they could easily realize or recognize these grammatical structures. That's why he says that they will become evident. Students discover the grammar rules themselves while engaged in language use. Notice it's not separated. This is the principal difference with the deductive method, explicit. So here you work with the language use. So they are engaged with the language use. So they discover the grammar rules by themselves, while engaging in language use. So, what are the advantages of encouraging learners to work rules out for themselves? Can you give me some advantages? What would be the advantages to use the inductive method to present grammar to our students? What would it be? What would be the advantages of encouraging learners to work rules out for themselves? Tell me your ideas. Don't be afraid, don't be shy. What would be the advantages of using this way of presenting grammar?
Good evening, teacher. In this case, for the advantage for learner is to amplify the creativity, and probably they can learn better the topic, right? Because they are creating.
All right. Yeah, that's right. So increase creativity. All right. Any other idea? No more.
Good evening, teacher.
Hi, Leslie.
Hello, teacher. Maybe it provides the first-hand knowledge and information that actual observation can be.
Oh, Leslie, I couldn't hear you so well. Could you repeat, please?
Okay. I think it provides first-hand knowledge and information about actual observation.
Yeah, it provides knowledge and information. Yeah, all right. Okay, okay. Yeah, and they can use observation. They are going to analyze. All right, okay. That's it. Leslie, any other one? Remember, if you cannot use your microphone, you can write it in the chat. Huh?
Could be also that we are not focused just in grammar. We can use different activities, listening.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, I know.
Lisbeth.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
So
yes.
we only don't focus on grammar. We can use different activities that in which students can get involved.
Yeah, all right, yes. This is what we're talking about just a few minutes, no? So this is not separated from other aspects of the language, no? In the explicit or deductive, it's separated, just grammar, just rule, just structures. But in this one, so students are going to develop more than just grammar, no? So they can develop other skills, other aspects of the language. All right, that's right, that's good, very good. So let's see here. Notice, more likely to fit into their existing mental structures. Notice, this is one of the advantages that our students could have if we made them to work out rules by themselves or for themselves, so that they are more likely to fit into their existing mental structure. So these structures, remember, when we talked about grammar, I think I talked to you the last session about this term, no, the universal grammar. Some linguists and scientists says that we as human beings, we have some internal structures of grammar since the moment we were born. It depends on the place or the region that we were born, and we adapt or we insert these structures to this internal, no? This is the language acquisition device, no? The LAT. I don't know if you have heard about it. All right. So we have this inner characteristics, no? Since the moment we were born. So we have a language acquisition device, and we adapt or we insert some structures, in this way, grammatical structure, to this device. So here says that when we use this kind of method, the inductive method, the students are more likely, or it's more possible they could fit into their existing mental structures. So it's that they could acquire these grammatical structures into their inner mental structures. So this is one of the advantages. The other one is that ensure longer memorability. So they can remember this grammatical structure for a longer time. That's why here says longer memorability. So they can remember for a long time. When we use the deductive, maybe they can catch at the beginning because it's easily, you explain the structure and they can understand, yeah, easy. But it's not so longer memorability. So they can easily forget it. And this way they can remember more. This is another advantage. Students are actively involved, attentive, motivated. Notice here, because they can do other activities, no? It's not just to listen to the teacher, pay attention to the teacher, and practice some examples, and produce some sentences. No. In this kind of method, they are going to be active, motivated, involved, all right? Favors pattern recognition abilities and problem solving. Notice, this is very important. Problem solving. They can solve problems. Aha, exactly, Lucy. Exactly, Leslie, also in the chat. Yeah, the learners discover for themselves how to use and when to use some structures. And Lucy says students predict and draw conclusions. That's it, very good. So notice all the advantages that we could have if we use this kind of method, no? So they can fit into the existing mental structure easily. They can remember more for a longer time these structures. They are actively participating in these activities and motivated, and they could easily recognize the patterns or the structures. And also, as your partners wrote in the chat, they could predict and do conclusions, and that's why they can solve some problems. That's why he has this problem solving. Notice here all the advantages. No, we have more advantages than the other one, no? But notice here that we could use both, no? We could use both. All right, let's see here. If the problem solving is done collaboratively and in the Taja language, learners get the opportunity for extra language practice. Notice here. So in order to solve some problems, so they could do it in groups, in pairs, so they are going to do it collaboratively. And they have the opportunity for extra language practice. That's why it's not separated from the skills. No? They could develop or practice other skills too, not just grammar. Not just grammar. Working things out for themselves prepares students for greater self-reliance and is therefore conducive to learner autonomy. So they could develop their autonomy because they could realize that they could find the rules out for themselves. Notice here, so they could develop their autonomy. All right. So notice all the advantages that we could have with this method. Now, how can we present grammar inductively? We have seen on the previous slides, in order to present grammar in a deductive way, so the teacher gives example, the teacher explains, and the teacher asks the students to produce or practice some sentences using the given prompt. So this is the procedures that we usually use in the deductive. Now, in the inductive, so what could we use? We could use actions, set up situations, make dialogues, ask the students to listen to a dialogue, and then answer questions highlighting the target structure, ask the students to read a test, and then answer questions highlighting the target structure. So notice that you're going to make your students infer, no? Infer these grammatical instructions using actions, using movements, gestures, setting up situations, making dialogues, using the ability or the skill to listen and recognize, identify, no? Highlighting, that's why here says highlighting the target structure, also using the reading when they read a test and they maybe answer some questions, highlighting again the target structure, recognize and identify. No, highlight is to recognize, to identify the target structure. So this is the way how we could present grammar inductively. Then we're going to analyze some specific activities. Now this is in a general way. The general activities or procedures that we could use to present grammar inductively. Notice the difference between these two methods, all right? The explicit and implicit. The explicit, deductive. Implicit, inductive. Explicit, the teacher explains. And then the students practice the prompts and produce some sentences using these prompts. And the inductive or implicit, so the teacher makes the students to recognize, to identify these rules by themselves or for themselves, all right? Using these activities, no? Using actions, setting up situations. For example, then we're going to talk about this kind of activity, a generative situation, creating or making dialogues, using other skills to notice as listening or reading, and they could identify and notice the grammatical structures. As we have seen before, so they could develop or they could practice extra language, you know, other aspects of the language. All right. So notice these two major ways to present grammar. Remember, these are the two major ways to present grammar. Now let's talk about how can we make our students practice grammar. According to Ur, this is a famous professor, university professor, college professor. According to Ur, practice may be defined as any kind of engaging with the language on the part of the learner, usually under the teacher's supervision, whose primary objective is to consolidate learning. So notice the meaning of practice here. Any kind, notice, any kind of engaging with the language on our students, and it is usually under the teacher's supervision in order to consolidate the learning process. This is the specific definition of practice, all right? Practice. Ur predicts that the following 6 factors contribute to successful practice. Pre-learning. So learners benefit from clear perception and short-term memory of the new language. Volume and repetition. The more exposure or production of language the learners have, the more likely they are to learn. The more they are exposed to the language, the more likely they are to learn. So that's why he says volume and repetition. Success orientation. Practice is most effective when based on successful practice. And the other 3 are heterogeneity. Practice should be able to elicit different sentences and generate different levels of answers from different learners. Teacher assistance. The teacher should provide suggestions, hints, and prompts. And the last one, interest, an essential feature that is closely related to concentration. So teacher must make each activity to practice interested. So the student must be interested, and it could develop to concentration, so they could concentrate on these activities, right? So notice here, these 6 activities, or these 6 factors that contribute to successful practice. Learning, volume and repetition, success orientation, heterogeneity, teacher assistance, and interest. Now, there are 2 categories of practice. For example, when we talked about the explicit or deductive way, we talked about some disadvantages that when we use this kind of method, it's too mechanical. No, the deductive way or the explicit way is too mechanical. Here we're going to talk about this term. There are 2 categories of practice: mechanical practice and meaningful practice. So these are 2 ways to practice grammar: in a mechanical way or in a meaningful way. Mechanical practice involves activities that are aimed at form accuracy, that they are well used. That's why accuracy. So notice mechanical practice involves activities that are aimed at form accuracy, form accuracy. So here we have these two activities, substitution and transformation drills. Can you remember about this term? Drill? What is a drill?
Choral repetition.
Yeah, this is one way to practice drill, no? Some pattern, remember, drills are some specific patterns of structures that our students are going to repeat first, then you ask them to change some parts of these prompts or these structures. So these are drills. That's why here says substitution and transformation drills. So because the focus of these kind of activities are the accuracy of the structure, the accuracy of the form, remember, the accuracy of the form. So we use these kind of activities, the substitution and transformation drills. For example, substitute the underlined part with the proper forms of the given words. You have, for example, green lawn, clean house, pretty garden, nice flowers. So Mrs. Green has the largest house in town. Notice, so they are going to substitute the underlined part with the proper forms of the given words. So they are going to use, if they could see it, the superlative, right? So Mrs. Green has the cleanest house, or the prettiest garden, or the nicest flowers in town. So they are going to substitute. Notice, substitute using the correct form or proper form. No? So this is a substitution drill. And this is a drill because you give them some structures, you give them some patterns, and they are going just to change some parts, no? Some parts of these structures or patterns using the specific structure. No? In this way, in this case, they are going to use the superlative form of the adjectives. No? Also, they are reinforcing the position of the adjectives. No? They are before nouns. So notice you are reinforcing that because they are going to use house, garden, lawn, flowers. So first the adjective, then the noun. So you are reinforcing two aspects here. The position of the adjective and how they are going to form the superlative adjective. Another one. Transformation. Change the following sentences into the past tense. Use the adverbs given in the brackets. For example, you have, now he lives in London. Now your students are going to change that, transform that sentence using the words given, the adverbs given in the brackets, the words and adverbs given in the brackets. Last year, Paris. So your student is going to write a sentence like this. I'm going to write here. Oh yeah, my teacher asked me to transform these sentences into the past using the words given. All right. So you say last year. No, oh, sorry. Last year, he lived in Paris. Oh, he lived in Paris last year. No, it depends on the focus of the sentence. No, notice they are transforming, right? They are transforming. The other one is the same. No, we have English and math today. Now they need to use yesterday and music and PE. So they say, oh, we had, notice, we had music and PE yesterday. Huh? Notice they are transforming, all right? So this is mechanical, all right? Mechanical. So they just substituting or transforming some patterns or some structures that you give them. All right. This is called mechanical practice. Mechanical practice. Oh. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes? Can you hear me? Are you there?
I can, teacher. I can hear you.
All right. Because I received again a message from my internet connection. Oh, yeah. I don't know what's going on with my connection today. Yeah. All right. So notice this is mechanical practice. Let's pass to the meaningful practice. Meaningful practice focuses on the production, comprehension, or exchange of meaning, so the students keep an eye on the way newly learned structures are used in the process. For example, after the presentation of mechanical practice of adjective, comparatives, and superlatives, notice, first maybe you ask your students to write or change or transform or substitute, some structures. After that, because this is the mechanical, so you could do this. Maybe you say pair work. Look at a table below. Write the items on the left column according to the criteria listed on the top. Notice you present a table and they need to run the items on the left. So beer, water, fruit, cigarettes, alcohol, milk, according to the criteria listed on the top. So you give them some criteria, no? The cheap, the healthy, the tasty, fattening, important. So they are going to produce, notice, they are going to produce, using this table, they are going to produce. Okay, teacher, yeah, beer, I think beer is fattening than water, or is cheaper than water, or beer is the cheapest. Notice, they are going to produce. They're going to start producing. This is not mechanical. This is meaningful, right? And they could do it collaboratively, because here it says in pairs, no? You make your student work in pairs. So the students may come up with, I think beer is cheaper than fruit. No. I think fruit is cheaper than beer, because they are going to work in pairs. No? So you ask them, yeah, now compare these things using comparative or superlative form of adjectives. Cheap, healthy, tasty, fattening, important. So this is a meaningful practice activity. All right, remember, so in meaningful practice activity, the focus is in the production, comprehension, and exchange of meaning. Remember, all right? Now, let's talk about some activities. We are going to, remember, we are going to talk about the explicit and the implicit. Explicit, deductive. Remember, rule driving. Implicit is rule discovery, the inductive approach. Let's start talking about the explicit approach, the deductive approach, the direct explaining. So you can explain a grammar rule directly using the student's mother tongue. So for example, this is focused on the grammar translation. That's why here, remember, that's why the name of this approach is grammar translation method. Remember that this is one of the first approaches or methods that we use to teach languages, the grammar translation method. So you're going to explain this structure in the mother tongue, in the first language. Students can contrast an item of grammar, or to present and explain the grammar directly by using English at all times. It is usually possible to build on what they already know to introduce a new grammar point. So it depends on you. You could use the mother tongue or the foreign or second language. So you could use this kind of structure, no? You have a worksheet, so you start explaining, no? Okay, my dear students, today we're going to analyze this structure, no? Subject and object pronouns. Subject pronouns. Oh, we have I, you, he, she, we, you, they. What is the meaning of I? What is the translation? I, yo, professor, yeah, yo, teacher, you, too. Notice you're using here, no? A contrast, and you use the second language, the mother tongue, no, the first language. So this is the direct explaining. And remember, the direct explaining. So you use, if you want, the mother tongue, and students can compare, can contrast an item of grammar. I notice also that it's important that you can build this on what they already know, no? To introduce a new grammar point. So let's see some steps. Step 1. The teacher writes on the board the sentence. No? Remember the procedures, no, that we have seen before. The teacher presents examples. So the teacher writes on the board the sentence. The president phoned the queen. Well, this is the sentence. Step 2. The teacher then erases the president and substitutes someone. Notice, substitution drill. Someone phoned the queen. Notice, the teacher is using this explicit approach, giving some sentences. Then the teacher elicits or writes a question. Who phoned the queen? And then the teacher writes the answers, no? The president. Now the queen is substituted with someone and elicits a question again. Someone phoned the queen. Who phoned the queen? The president. The president phoned someone. Notice now you change queen for someone. The teacher asks students to analyze the difference between the questions. Notice you have here two questions. Who did the president phone? Notice, who phoned the queen? Who did the president phone? So here we have two questions, all right? Two questions. So you can ask them maybe, remember this method is related more to the grammar translation, no? The grammar translation method. So you can ask them, or maybe they can use the mother tongue. Oh, profesor, ya, teacher. Sí, ¿quién llamó a la reina? Y el otro es, ¿a quién llamó el presidente? Ah, yeah. So notice that you could use this kind of combination, no? Using the mother tongue. But notice the teacher gives sentences, all right? Gives sentences. The teacher explains the difference. Now, the explanation. Remember, first, the presentation, then the explanation. The teacher explains the difference, pointing out that to form questions about the subject of the sentence requires no change in order word, and uses the word to do that. No? So the president phoned someone. The president, who did the president phone? So there is no change in word order. The teacher then places 4 pictures of famous people. This is an idea. Or in the absence of pictures, their names and connects them with arrows. Notice Michael Jackson, Madonna, the Pope, Martina Higgins. So you could use pictures or you could use names. You just write the names and connect with arrows. All right, you connect with arrows. the teacher writes on the board more questions and students to ask and answers in and asks students to ask and answer in pairs. So who phoned you yesterday or this morning or last weekend? Or who did you phone yesterday, this morning or last weekend? Or maybe using the characters given, no? Who did Madonna phone? Madonna phoned to the Pope. Huh? Notice here, that's why the arrows, no? That's why the arrows. So the arrow means that this person, Madonna, calls the Pope calls Martina Higgins calls Michael Jackson, and Michael Jackson calls Madonna. Notice here this the purpose of these arrows, no? So here the teacher, remember, in explicit approach, the teacher explains. In step 3, the teacher explains the difference, all right? The teacher explains the difference between these two kind of questions. But it doesn't mean that the teacher, at the first time of the class, he's going to explain. If you notice, first the teacher gives examples, gives some sentences. Then the teacher explains, all right? Notice here, yeah, it doesn't mean that you start explaining. No. The teacher can give some examples, some sentences, and the students could have some idea about it. But then the teacher explains what is structure, how they could make this structure, no? How you could make questions related to the subject or questions related to the object. So the teacher explains, all right? And also you can add more questions, no? Who emailed you? Who did you mail? Notice the two kind of questions. Who visited you? Who did you visit? Who wrote to you? Who did you write to? And you have some adverbials, no? Yesterday, last week, last weekend, last Christmas. And they start producing, notice, they start producing sentences, but using the given prompts. They start using these given prompts. Oh, yeah, I emailed to my best friend, no? Oh, who did you email? Oh, yeah, who emailed you? Oh, my best friend emailed me. So notice here, they are going to use these structures, all right? So remember the procedures in the explicit way. First, the teachers present the structure, then he explains the structure, and then asks students to produce sentences using the given prompts, the famous PPP, all right? Presentation, practice, production, all right? So notice this is the explicit approach. Another one. We are in the explicit approach. Step 1. The teacher divides the class into groups depending on the class size. The teacher gives out an exercise sheet which requires the students to complete the gaps in the test. Notice here you give them articles, complete the test by choosing the best word to complete the gap, and, or nothing. Sometimes more than one answer may be possible. If you are not sure about an answer, leave it. Your classmate may be able to help you later. So they need to complete. Notice that the teacher divides the class into groups. Notice here, the teacher asks the groups to work on this exercise and gives them 5 minutes to do this. Then he hands out 3 grammar summaries, A, B, and C. Each group has just one summary. The teacher regroups them in such a way that the new groups comprise members of each of the original groups. Then he checks the exercise in open class. Notice what the teacher is doing here. So the teacher gives some tests, no? Here you have a test, and they need to complete the test, no? Complete the gaps in the test. Then the teacher asks groups to work this exercise, 5 minutes, and then the teacher gives some explanation Notice the teacher gives explanation. Grammar summaries is referring to the explanation. So when to use the articles, no? But the explanation is divided in 3 parts, A, B, and C. So they are going to read, and then the teacher notice checks the exercise in open class. And so the teacher gives the explanation, not in an oral way. Notice in the first activity, the teacher explains, no, on the board, using the board, explaining in an oral way. Now the teacher gives the explanation, but not in a written way, because the teacher gives this explanation, but divided. Notice divided. The explanation is divided, A, B, and C. And each group has just one summary, and so the teacher then regroup. So students who were in the group A, now 2 of them pass to the group B, and so on. No, that's you can have in each group A, B, and C. A, B, and C. And they are going to discuss the rules with the teacher. Remember, with the help of the teacher is going to explain maybe for each group, no, to reinforce, and then check the exercise in open class. So notice the teacher now is giving the explanation in another way, not in an oral, in a written way. But the teacher tries to make the students work collaboratively, all right? It doesn't mean when you talked about deductive, yeah, it's boring, yeah, because the student is going just to listen, teacher, and produce. No, maybe you can do this in a more active way, no? More active way. They can work together in groups, no? They're going to read the rules or maybe listen to the teacher. Notice different ways to use the explicit approach. Now, let's pass to the implicit approach, discovering the grammar. Now, this is the discovery, rule discovery, all right? The inductive. Students discover the grammar rather than telling them what it is. Do this by choosing a test which contains lots of examples of the target grammar. Notice, lots of examples of the target grammar. For example, if the test includes regular verbs in the past simple form, ask the students to underline all the verbs in the test. Then, ask them to say what they notice about the verbs, which will be that they all end in ed. So we call this a generative situation. Remember, this is called a generative situation. So you have here, oh, I think the picture is not so good. Notice here, a factory needs workers. Yesterday, Bill read their advertisement in the paper. It said these things. We are a very large firm, pay very high wages, and have a good pension scheme. Bill is at the factory today. He now knows that all those things are not true. At this moment, he is saying these things to the manager. You said you were a very large firm, but you are really a small one. You said you paid high wages, but they are really very low. You said you had a good pension scheme. You really haven't one at all. Notice here the structures. You said you were. You said you pay. You said you had. Okay? Notice here that you have this structure, this pattern in many sentences in this test. For example, here you are practicing the indicted speech, no, or reported speech. You said you were, you said you pay, you said you had. And maybe you can ask them, no, what's the difference between the first sentences at the beginning of the story and the second sentences at the end of the story? So they are going to analyze. We are, now it was changed to you were. All right. Yeah. Here says, pay very high wages, pay very high wages, present. Now you paid high wages, present, past. Have a good pension scheme, had a good pension scheme. Okay, teacher, yeah. From present to past. The first sentences in the test are in present, and the sentences in the second part of the story are in past. So they are identifying, notice, they are identifying these structures, all right? These structures by themselves. So by generative situation, we mean a situation that can generate a lot of the kind of language you wish to focus. You can present it using a story or using flashcards. For example, some situations that could generate, notice that we're here, generative situation, it generates examples of a structure or patterns. Situation, two friends are trying to arrange a time. So what is the target grammar? No, arrange a time to see each other, no, arrangements. So what is the target grammar or target language? Present continuous. What are you doing next Tuesday? No, essentially the present continuous. No? So this situation, notice, this situation is generating some examples of this pattern, of this structure. What is the structure of the pattern? The target grammar, the present continuous. Here you have one example. No, what are you doing next Tuesday? You present a story or maybe a conversation, no? The two friends are trying to arrange a time to see each other. So they are going to identify, okay, what structure they are using to arrange a time to see each other. Oh, teacher, yeah. What are you doing? Are you doing? Oh, present continuous, teacher. This is the present continuous. Underline it. So maybe you can ask them to underline all the present continuous sentences. So they identify. Another one, a memorable holiday. So what is the target grammar or target language? Past simple. I went to Quitos last year. No, this is an example. No, this is an example. This is another situation. Notice another situation, and you can give them a story or maybe a show biography. I don't know. You can present this this structure in many different ways. No. A sales representative and a customer. This is the situation. What is the target grammar? Conditionals. If you buy this, you'll never need to. Notice you practice the conditional sentences in this situation. Planning a long trip. So reason clauses. We need sleeping bags because it's going to be cold. So they are exposing, no, they are exposing their reasons, and they are using clauses. No, we need the sleeping bag because it's going to be cold. If they are planning, so they are going to use going to. Notice here. So this is called generative situation activities. So you have a situation that can generate a lot of the kind of language you wish to focus. And you give this situation to your students, and they are going to identify what kind of patterns of structures are you using in this situation. All right? And you can present it using a story, flashcards, or conversation, dialogues, No, so we have many different ways to present this. Using test. Remember, we're talking about discovering the grammar. There are three ways of obtaining a written test. Find a real authentic test that contains this kind of a structure or pattern that you want to focus. Find a real authentic test and rewrite it slightly. Notice you rewrite it slightly, or write a test yourself. For example, no, find examples of X and underline them, no, any kind of a structure. Good for different parts of a speech, past tense verbs, adjectives, adverbs. No, so here you have different texts and what are they are good for. So if you ask them to find examples of any structure, any pattern, and underline them, so this is very important. It's useful to identify some different parts of a speech. No, verbs, adjectives, adverbs. Another task could be find examples of X and underline them along with words next to them. Notice next to them, not just identify the pattern, the word structure given. No, other word, other structure patterns. So they are good for collocations, word partnerships, quantifiers, with countable and uncountable nouns. Notice what they are good for, the task and what they are good for. The third task, find examples of X and circle them along with what they refer to, pronouns, reference. Now, remember when we talked about reference, no, we use this to substitute the nouns, not to repeat. So you use this kind of activity to practice or to reinforce pronouns. The next one, find examples of X and change them to similar words. So they are good for, is it good for modal verbs? Example, change the word will to might. And the last one, the last task, find examples and think about what the writer or speaker used that word or phrase. So we have here modal verbs, articles. All right. So notice here the different activities that we could do. Now, the other one, students discover the grammar by analyzing some sentences or structures. Now, this is a very common activity or exercise that we could find in a book, no, in a test book. Find the rule. Look at these sentences. You know Norma and Joe, don't you? They work every day. Joe talks to tourists and Norma writes letters. So there is a final S on the verb only with certain subjects. What are they? So they need to analyze. Oh yeah, the S in the third sentence and the fifth sentence. Joe, oh Joe, he. The agency, it, he, it. Notice they are analyzing, they are identifying, they are discovering the grammar by analyzing some sentences or structures. They are given some exercises to identify the rule. This is called guided discovery. All right? This is the guided discovery. So you give them some activities in order to identify, to recognize the grammatical patterns or grammatical structures. Another one that is very common too, using pictures or drawings. A quick sketch on the board can illustrate a grammar point very quickly. For example, a picture of a person dreaming of a future ambition can be used to introduce be going to talk about future intentions. Notice here, you have this sketch on the board, no, a person who is dreaming, no, who is thinking about a plane, no, maybe he's going to travel, no? So you can ask your students, what is the man thinking of? Oh, yeah, he's thinking of a plane. All right. Maybe he's going to travel, right? So notice here, and then you show other pictures, no? Maybe he's going to travel to a landscape or to USA because I can see the Statue of Liberty, or to the desert. And notice he's going to travel, he's going horse riding, or he's going to go skiing. Notice you use pictures, you use pictures to point out a grammar point or grammatical structure using pictures. Or to introduce the topic of likes and dislikes. This is another example, another idea. You can use your own drawings. I know that you use these kind of drawings at once, huh? Opinion verbs, and you draw the faces on the board, no? Smiley face, love, like, don't mind, don't like, hate. So you use these drawings, your own drawings. You could use picture photos or your own drawings to point out some grammatical structures. So the students go, oh, love, oh yeah, it's positive, like positive. Don't mind, it's not positive or negative. Don't like and hate, negative. And so it means that you use love, like to what you like. And if you don't like it, you just don't like and hate. And if you're not sure you like it or not, you just don't mind. Notice using the pictures, they could discover the grammar. No? You present the grammar using pictures or drawings. Another very common way to present grammar is using diagrams. Diagrams to present grammar are especially helpful to visual learners and help give it an order. It's a good idea to prepare the diagram clearly before on a piece of paper if it is the first time you are using it. No? Nowadays, we have a lot of diagrams on the internet, no? So you can write the grammar that you want to focus, and you can find a lot of diagrams. Some of the diagrams that we could use is the clients, no? So to show degrees, no? This is very important to show degrees, no? For example, when we talked about quantifiers, no? Few, a few, some, many, a lot. The quantity, no? Modifiers, very, really, extremely, quite, fairly, a bit. Modal verbs to express future, won't, may, might, will. So you use these clients to show them the degree, no? The degree of the use of these words. We usually use to quantifiers, modifiers, or modal verbs. Also, we use this one. We teach our students the adverbs of frequency. This is a diagram. And it helps the students to give an order, no? Oh yeah, always 100%, never 0%, 50% is sometimes, 90% usually, no, 5% rarely. Notice, you could use these diagrams to present grammar to your students, no? And also you could follow with some examples too, no? As you can see here, I always go shopping after work. And then you use maybe the mechanical activity, no? Now replace it with another adverb. I never go shopping after work. Oh, Valeria? Valeria?
I'm so sorry, teacher.
Ah, okay, okay. I thought you want to talk. All right, Valeria. Don't worry, don't worry. So, notice here, you could use diagrams to present grammar. Another kind of diagrams are using arrows. So using arrows, you can show the difference between two verbs. He has gone to Singapore. Notice a linear arrow. He has gone, no? The difference between has gone and has been. Has gone, a linear, from point A to point B. And notice the person goes to point A to point B, and it's on point B. But he has been to Singapore. You have a clear arrow. And they could say, teacher, yeah, A, B. Oh, yeah, he returned. And he returned, the person's returned to point A. He was in B, but now he is in A again. And notice, using a diagram, they could identify, yeah, what is the difference between these two arrows? Oh, yeah, teacher. The first one, the arrow is, the person is in A and now is in B. But in the second, the person is in A, then he was a B, and now he's now again in A. Yeah, this is the difference between has gone and has been. The person is on the place on point B, but in has been, the person returned to the place or to the point in A. So they identify, they could realize, they could analyze this drawing, these arrows, and they could easily get the idea of the pattern or the structure. Another one, and this is very common, is to indicate a change of word order. No, you are a student, so in order to make questions, you change. No, are you a student? Another kind of diagrams is using timelines. What do you use it for? To illustrate a verb tense. He have had many different jobs. Notice different jobs. XXX from the past to now. So it talks about the quantity, no? Oh yeah, teacher, quantity, different jobs. No, we don't have a specific time. All right. So, but this person had different jobs from past to now. Notice you use the timelines to illustrate a verb tense. Notice the kind of diagrams that you could use. No, you could use lines, you could use arrows, you could use timelines. The other one is using flashcards. Flashcards. Oh, can you see what I'm sharing? Yes, can you listen to me? Again, my connection is not good.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, so because I can see some messages here on my screen. Yeah, flashcards are cards that you know, right? Cards with pictures or words on them to help present language. They are most associated, commonly associated with vocabulary teaching, but can equally serve for grammar presentations. Here are some things you can put on flashcards. You can put pictures again to elicit or drill a sentence. You show the picture, you show your flashcard, say he is playing tennis, and then you show another picture, another flashcard with another action, with the present continuous, you give the example, you give the model, so the students is going to do the same with the picture. You are drilling. This is called drilling, remember? Yeah. When you give a sentence, you give a pattern, your students repeat, or maybe substitute or transform some parts of this structure pattern. This is called drilling. Remember, could be oral, choral, as Lisbeth said, or in a written way. So you use this, pictures, flashcards, to elicit or drill a sentence. Another one is to set up a generative situation. Remember, generative situation, different situations that we could have in order to generate a lot of examples of this pattern of a structure. No? For example, you show this and you won the lottery. What are you going to do with the money? And you have the picture of the money, the flashcard money, right? And they start using the structure, the pattern. Yes, no, the flashcard, very common flashcard, yes, no, to provide a prompt for short answers. No? For example, no, you ask them, yeah, now I'm going to ask you some questions and you're going to answer yes or no. If you see the yes flashcard, so your answer must be positive. If you see the no, so your answer must be negative. So you ask, did you go to the movie last night? and you show the flashcard, yes. The students, oh, yes, I did. Yeah, the other, you show the flashcard, no, I didn't. And notice you use the flashcard to elicit, to give you a prompt to students to answer in a short way, in a short way. Another one, flashcards with pronouns, not to provide prompts for a substitution drill. Again, you ask your students, yeah, so I'm going to say something. I went to the supermarket yesterday. Oh, in order to practice present simple better, because the S, in order to reinforce the S. I go shopping on Mondays. Now, you have to do something similar, but notice the flashcard that I'm going to show you. And you show your students a flashcard he. So you ask Pedro, for example, Pedro, now make a sentence with he. He goes shopping on Mondays, teacher. And notice they are going to substitute, drilling again. This is called drilling. You use the flashcard with pronouns and they need to change it. Now, yeah, Juan, we go shopping on Mondays. And notice they change the verb, they change the verb. All right, so you use the flashcards, all right? You use the flashcards to make a substitution drill. Notice it's not just written, could be oral too, using the flashcards. Time reference, again, the same, not to provide prompts for sentence transformation to indicate if an error has occurred, So you reinforce that. Again, yeah, I'm going to say the sentence, and you have to transform it. If it is in present, if it is in past. Yeah, I'm going to say the sentence. I go shopping every day. And you show past. And the student is going to, oh yeah, I went shopping. Notice they change, they transform. All right. And also you could use it to indicate if an error has occurred. Maybe they say they go it. No, go it. Because it's irregular. It's irregular, regular, no ED. So you can check here the mistakes. And the other one is using the symbols, questions or negatives, to provide prompts for sentence transformation exercises too. Again, you make a positive statement, or maybe you give a sentence. You just give them some words, and with these words they have to make a question or a negative sentence. Maybe you give the words, you give a present, and you show the flashcard. Yeah, with these words you have to make a sentence. Look at my flashcard, and you show the question mark. Yeah, now create a sentence, and they start creating the sentence. Or maybe transforming the sentence. Yeah, okay, teacher. A question, it's in present. Yeah. So do they give a present? Notice you're using the flashcards to make your students practice the grammar structure part, and you're presenting the grammar using the flashcards. And as you know, you could create your own flashcards, so you can find it on the internet, or you can do it virtually. If you have an overhead projector, so you can prepare it and show it on the screen. Not just on a piece of paper or cardboard. So you can do it now virtually too. Using stories. Like using a written test, an oral test told by the teacher. Notice, oral test told by the teacher is another effective way to present a grammar point. Prepare your story first. Make sure that you include examples of the grammar you'd like to highlight, but not so many as to make the story sound weird. Then tell the students that you're going to share a story about something that happened to you. Don't read the story. Notice you're not going to read it. Tell the story. Ask the students to work in pairs and recount as much of the story as they can remember to each other. Similar, you can notice here, this is similar to a dictogloss. Can you remember about the activity that we saw on the last module, the dictogloss activity? Here, if we can remember, the video that I showed you was related with just some sentence, no? But here's a story, and they have to recount the story as much as they can, right? As much as they can remember, obviously. Ask one pair to feedback to the rest of the class. Now, ask specific comprehension questions about your story. They should relate to parts of the story which include attached grammar. So in the questions that you're going to ask, you need to focus the attached grammar. Try to elicit the sentences that contain the grammar you want to present. You can write it on the board. And notice using this story. So now you have to elicit the sentences that contain the grammar you want to present. Now you can point out the specific grammar by underlining, explaining, or using a guided discovery activity. So you are using a story, here an oral story, to present the grammar. And they are going to identify it. No? They are going to identify it. But you are going to make and identify this structure by asking questions to them. And then maybe you can ask them to remember what parts of the story have this structure. So they need to remember, oh, teacher, yeah, when you said that you went, to your best friend's house. Oh, teacher, yes, you saw a ghost. And notice you are reinforcing this structure. Not your story, remember, must have a lot of examples. Remember, this is related to discovering grammar, that you give examples to your students in order to identify these structures, all right? So if your story doesn't have this part of grammar, so it's impossible, no? So it needs to have a lot of examples of the grammar that you want to present. Using objects or realia. For example, if you want to present the comparative form, is bigger than, so the simplest way is to find two objects and contrast them. Alternatively, ask two students to stand up and compare their height to produce a sentence like, Hanny is taller than Tom. Write the sentences on the board and underline the comparative form so the students notice the construction. Another one, notice here, using concordance lines. This is not very common. Maybe you haven't seen it before, or you haven't used it before. I think this kind of activity is for more advanced learner because it needs a deeper analysis of the structure. Yeah, but I think it's useful. Notice here, a concordance line is a piece of data taken from a corpus. A corpus is like discourse, a test discourse. A random sample of uses, notice, a random sample of uses of a particular word or words used to highlight a piece of language. Notice, what is a concordance line? This is a concordance line. So you have here, notice, you have the word manage, no? The word manage. All these sentences or parts of the sentences have the word manage. So what can you do with this, teacher? What can I do with this? Manage, 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 manage. So you, as I told you, you can use this with advanced level students because it's more important to recognize some specific parts of a speech. For example, you could say, yeah, what part of a speech is a word grammar? Manage, sorry. Manage. Okay, manage. Oh, and the first is meant to manage a verb, manage a verb. Teacher, it's a verb. Maybe you could ask them another one. What words come before the word manage? Before the word manage. To manage. So we have difficult to manage, enough to manage, or will, or modals, can manage, could manage. Notice never, adverbs of frequency, never manage. Modifiers, quiet. No, we didn't quiet manage. Notice they identify. You can ask, what words come after the word manage? Oh, manage, after the word manage. Manage a crisis. Nouns. Then we have the other ones. No, I can manage, could manage. Oh, pronouns, object pronouns, manage it. I can manage that for short distances. Oh, yeah, demonstratives. Manage to attain, manage to construct, manage to come up. Oh, infinitive, teacher. After manage, the next word is infinitive. Manage to attain, manage to construct, manage to count up. So notice here, as I told you, this is in order to analyze in a deeper way the structure of the words that you want to focus. No? This is called a concordance lines. For example, another one. Now with the word on. Motorists from the southeast can also reach Somerset on the M3 and A303. The prices given are a guideline for the reader and are normally based on the cost of. Can advise you further on this. Suggestions on how to improve. Notice you have here different examples of the word. Of this, in this case, the preposition. Borman, on sea. And again, you can ask your students, what words come, or what is the part of a speech of on? Parts of a speech. Yeah, it's a preposition. Okay. What words come before? What words come after? On the, yeah, nouns, the article. On this, demonstrative. On how. And notice. And before. Oh, yeah. So here we have verb based on, further on, suggestions on. And notice they start analyzing the structures. All right. They start analyzing the structures. So notice here we call this concordance lines. Remember, this is called concordance line. This activity is used to highlight, to highlight a piece of language, uses of a particular word or words. Remember that. Using songs. This is another way to present grammar. There are various ways of using songs in the classroom. The level of the students, the interest, and the age of the learners, the grammar point to be studied, and the song itself have determinant roles on the procedures. Some examples of these techniques are gap fills or cloze test, true-false statements, put these lines into the correct sequence, circle the antonyms or synonyms of the given words, discuss. So you could use these techniques to reinforce or to present grammar. The gap fills is the most common activity, to complete the spaces in blank, or cloze test. Cloze test, remember the difference between gap filling and cloze test. Both are necessary to complete the spaces, but the difference is in the order. Gap fills is the word that you want, but cloze test, you have some specific word number. After 5 words, or after 6 or 7 or 8 words, you erase a word, and then so on, no? So this is a closed test, don't forget it. True, false statements. So here you have to listen, or maybe you read the lyrics, you ask some questions. Remember, using the attached grammar, remember, using the attached grammar, and then you're going to use again the attached grammar. The correct sequence, the antonyms, synonyms, or the given words, they could also discuss, no? Again, using the structure, the grammar that you are analyzing. Using aims. This is another one. Using aims. So the hot grandma potato, hot potato. The teacher chooses a category, such as verbs, and gives a small bowl or other easy pass item, the hot potato, to student. So the teacher plays music or sets a timer, and while the music plays, the student with the hot potato must shout out of an example of the topic and then pass the potato to the next person. Imagine that you're practicing the present continuous tense to talk about arrangements. So you divide the class maybe as in a circle, no, maybe on their seats, no? And you play the music and you pass a piece of paper, maybe like a ball or a balloon, as you want. No? Yeah, I know that you have played this game before. And then you stop the music. And the student who has this hot potato must say a sentence using the present continuous, and in order to talk about an arrangement. Oh, yeah. Okay, teacher, yeah. I'm meeting my friends at 3 o'clock after class. Yeah. And then, okay, that's good, that's good. Or the student said, yeah, that's good. Okay, let's continue. And the teacher starts playing the music again. And then you stop the music. And the other student must say that sentence using the present continuous, no? But to talk about arrangements, remember the topic, the situation, because remember the present continuous could be used to talk about situations that are happening now. So you must say clearly this to your students, not a sentence. Maybe the grammar is okay, the sentence is okay, but the use, remember, the use is not correct because you are going to use the structure to talk about arrangements. So your students must say arrangements using the present continuous. If a student says, yeah, I am listening to music now. No, it's not correct. Grammatically, structurally, it's correct because the student uses the present continuous, but the use is incorrect. The situation is incorrect. So you must be careful on that. No, that's why here says example of the topic or situation. So students can't pass the potato until they call out a correct example, and the student with a potato with a music timer stop is out. Conjugation B. For this game, students are given an irregular verb and a tense. They must correctly say the conjugated verb or be eliminated from the B. The winner is the last student standing. To increase the difficulty of this game requires students to correctly spell the conjugated verb. So here you have an example, not to practice this irregular verbs and a tense. So the student must say correctly the conjugated verb, or they could be eliminated from the B. And if you want to make it more difficult, so they need to spell the conjugated verb, no? So it's very important in irregular verbs, no? Think, thought. Sometimes they could say thought, but they don't know how to spell it or how to write it. So it's going to be more complicated, no? More complicated. All right, here you have, as you can see, some activities how to present grammar, no? Remember, as I told you, there are two major ways to present grammar: explicit and implicit. Explicit is called the deductive way or deductive approach. The teacher explains, right? Remember the procedure. The teacher gives sentences, examples, and then explains in an oral or written way, no? Remember that we saw this, no? maybe in an oral or written way, and then the teacher asks students to produce sentences using the given prompt, the structure of the pattern. On the other way, we have the inductive method, inductive approach, or implicit. So here the teacher doesn't explain. The teacher makes the students to realize. So the students are going to discover the structure, the rules for themselves. And here the teacher makes the students infer these rules by giving them a lot of examples, and they are going to analyze, to draw conclusions, and also they are going to use other aspects of the language, not just the grammar, not just the grammar. So they are going to use other aspects of the language. So here we have these two major ways to present grammar, and also we talked about, we saw some activities that we could use to present grammar. Now, as we did all the sessions, I'm going to show you now. I'm going to change my screen. Oh, let me see. Yeah. I'm going to show you some web pages, and also I'm going to put it here in the chat in order to practice grammar with your students, and also you could use it in order to increase your knowledge. Remember that it's important to increase our knowledge. Just give me a second. Oh, where is it? Where is it? Yeah, here it is. I think so. Yeah. Can you see it? Tell me. Can you see it?
Yes, teacher, I can.
All right. So this is the first one. The web page is called Perfect English Grammar. I put it in the chat. Notice here at the beginning, you can also take a test, in order to measure your level. What's my English grammar level? Take the free quiz here. Then you have a lot of things. You have here grammar exercises, grammar explanations, grammars, PDFs. So here you have a lot of materials. Yeah? Verb tenses, reported speech, modal verbs, the passive, conditional, phrasal verbs. So all of them are free. But then you have also other payment options if you want to take a course. So also you can pay. But here, this is free. Yeah, this is free. Grammar exercises, for example. Yeah, notice irregular verbs, present simple, present continuous. So you have here a lot of exercises. Let's start with one. Irregular past simple, part one. Oh, my connection is too slow. Okay, here it is. Notice they are interactive, so you can check if you are right or not at the moment. Change the verb into past simple. Notice this is mechanical, no? Mechanical. Substitution drill, no? Substitution drill. Change the verb into past simple. And so they start writing, and you can check it. It's correct. All right? Notice. So here you have exercises. Also, you have the opportunity to download the PDF. If you don't have the opportunity to practice virtually on the internet, so you can download a PDF. No, here says, click here to download this exercise in PDF with answers. And also the list of irregular verbs. No, download the list in PDF here. So you have a lot of things. Notice that you have here a lot of things. This is just in the exercises. Then you have grammar explanations, grammar PDFs, verb tenses. Notice, let's go to verb tenses. Tenses infographics, uses infographs. or tenses explanations. Also, you can download all the infographics tenses in PDF, all the explanations tenses in PDF. So here you have a lot of material. You have a lot of material to use in your classes and also to reinforce your grammar skill. Let's pass to another web page. Here it is, English Club. I'm going to put it in the chat. English Club. I think I showed you this web page before when we talked about pronunciation, because you have here a lot, no? You have grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, listen, speak, read, write. So you have a lot. So in grammar, let's see in grammar. What do you have in grammar? You have here, what is grammar? Ask questions about grammar, 20 grammar rule, grammar vocabulary, grammar quizzes, grammar games. Notice. Word level grammar, 9 parts of a speech. Here you have all the parts of a speech. Sentence level grammar, so you have phrases, what is a sentence, the 4 types of sentence, linking intransitive and transitive verbs, direct object, grammar theory, so here you have the universal grammar. This is what I told you, that we have a grammar that is shared with all the languages, not just English or Spanish, all the languages. Also, you have more grammar articles, grammar games and quizzes online. So here you have a lot of games. Recommended grammar links. Also, you have other web pages that you can check grammar, you can practice grammar. Grammar quizzes. So you have a lot again here. Yeah, you have a lot. Also, you have here a list, phrasal verb list, irregular verbs list, verb tenses, part of a speech. So you have a lot. All right, you have a lot. Let's pass to another one. This is from the British Council again. Again, I think I showed you this before. As I told you, here you have a lot of things too. I'm going to put it in the chat. Yeah, here it is. Grammar. This is from the British Council, learnenglish.britishcouncil.org. Yeah? So you can choose a section, beginner to pre-intermediate, intermediate to upper intermediate, English grammar reference. So you have like a lesson. So you have lessons here. Choose a grammar lesson. Eh? You can choose adjectives ending in ed and ing. Also, you have some exercises, grammar test, grammar explanation, examples, and again, you have another test. So you have a in order to know how much you know about the topic, and then you have one at the end to check how much you understand about the topic. All right. So here you have these links. And one last, I'm going to show you one last page, englishgrammar.org. I'm going to put it in the chat. Yeah, this. Here, this is just grammar. You have here lessons, as you can see here, download lessons, grammar rules, online exercises, online tools, videos, guides. So you have a lot. For example, online tools, you have a grammar checker. So you can insert a test that maybe you have written and it corrects you. Similar to the web page that I've shown you in the writing. Now remember the write and improve. That you write a test with some task given. Now, this is the difference because in the write and improve, you have some task given and according to the task you need to write and the web page checks your written test. Here, no, any written test that you have, you insert it and you could check it. Notice here, this is a grammar checker. Grammar check. Okay. Enter the test you want to check for grammar, spelling, and punctuation mistakes. Then click on the buttons below. You have free check or deep check. If you use the deep check, sometimes maybe you need to pay. But I advise you just to use the free check. It's free, so you don't have to pay anything. Yeah. Also, you have in this infographics. Notice 100 quick writing tips infographics to improve your writing. Remember that writing is mostly connected with the grammar, no? So how to clean my writing flow chart, 14 boring expression, what to use misread, formal versus informal. So you have a lot, all right? You have a lot here. And also the lessons, notice, here you have opportunity to download lessons, past continuous tense. You have the PDF. So you have here the excerpt. What is it about? The exercises. They are interrupted too. And you have the answers. And also you have the opportunity to download it as a PDF. No? As you can see here, as a PDF. Also you have the grammar rules. Again, you can download it as a PDF. All right. So you have a lot of things. As I told you a lot of times, internet is a great tool, that we could use it to teach, to learn, and try to use it the most. You can find a lot of things, a lot of things on the internet. Well, so, the time. So, yeah, I'm passing. All right. So we're going to stop here. Yeah, remember, that's all for grammar. Next session, the next week, we're going to start talking about vocabulary. The last 2 sessions of these modules is related to vocabulary. Again, first, we're going to start talking about what is vocabulary, different aspects in order to talk about the vocabulary. And then we're going to analyze some activities in order to present vocabulary too. All right. Well, thanks for all. Thanks for your attention and participation. See you next class. Take care a lot. Bye-bye.
Teacher.
Bye-bye,
Bye,
teacher.
Bye.
Bye, teacher. Thank you.
Bye-bye. See you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Take care too.